Revenge films.
My name is Yulia. I'm a 25-year-old housewife living with my husband, Ryan. I'm currently 6 months pregnant. My husband and I are eagerly waiting for the arrival of our child. Since we were going to have a baby, we decided it was time to build a house, and we were about to take possession of our new home. My relationship with my husband had been going really well, but there was one thing that bothered me. It was that my husband is a mama's boy. He grew up in a single-parent household with just his mother, and even as an adult, he hasn't fully separated from her. The same goes for my mother-in-law, and she hasn't let go of her son at all either. When it's just the two of us, my husband is kind, but when his mother is around, he joins her in making snide remarks towards me. So whenever visiting his family, I tried to have him go alone, and I made an effort to keep my distance from my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law seemed to absolutely despise me for taking away her only son, and she targeted me with hostility. My husband would just turn a blind eye to it all, and spending time together as a trio was nothing but torture for me. Our new house was an hour's drive from his mother's place, so I felt relieved thinking she wouldn't be able to visit us easily since she didn't have a car. But after we'd mostly finished unpacking, my husband said he was going to the convenience store and left, and I realized he hadn't come back for quite a while. I wondered which convenience store he could have possibly gone to, and after about 2 hours, he finally returned. And standing next to my husband was, to my shock, my mother-in-law. She was holding large bags of luggage and said cheerfully, "What a lovely house!" Then my husband said,
"Mom, your room is this way,"
and started carrying her luggage into what was supposed to be our nursery. "What do you mean, your mother's room?" I asked, and my husband replied,
"Starting today, Mom's gonna live with us."
He said it like it was the most natural thing in the world. I couldn't help but shout, "Live with us?" Then my mother-in-law glared at me and said, "Oh my, is there a problem?" I pulled my husband into the next room. "What's going on?" I demanded, and he responded,
"Mom lives alone, you know? We built this big house, so she might as well live with us."
"Why would you make such a huge decision without even discussing it with me?" I was furious. He replied,
"What choice do I have? Mom wanted to live with us. Besides, we already sold her house, so she has nowhere else to go."
And he dropped this bombshell on me. My husband had sold his mother's house ahead of time, knowing I'd object to this. And so our forced cohabitation began, and my mother-in-law started berating me every single day. As I was making dinner as usual, she said, "Ugh, what's this garbage you're cooking?" and threw the freshly made meat and potatoes straight into the trash. Shocked, I said, "What are you doing?" "I thought it was garbage, so I threw it out. Got a problem with that?" And she glared at me. When we ended up with one less dish for dinner, even though she was the one who threw it away, she said, "There's not enough food. Go to the store and buy more food right now," and forced me out of the house. I reluctantly went shopping at the supermarket. When I got home, my husband was already back. "I'm home." When I greeted him, he said,
"I heard about it. Were you trying to cut corners on dinner? You're a stay-at-home wife, so do your job properly."
And he complained. When I set out the prepared foods I'd brought on the table, my mother-in-law said, "Well now, let's eat," and devoured everything in an instant, including my portion. I was stunned by this cruel treatment, and my mother-in-law said, "You can do the dishes," and lay down on the couch. Sometime after our forced living arrangement began, the harassment from my mother-in-law and husband escalated. The stress made me withdrawn and depressed. Then one day my husband came home from work and said,
"I quit my job."
He just announced it out of the blue. What? He then said something unbelievable.
"I've been supporting you all this time, so after you have the baby, you're going to work."
I was just frozen in shock. Then my mother-in-law appeared and said, "If you betray us after everything we've done for you, I won't forgive you. Get a job and pay my son back for all the living expenses he spent on you." She was furious. After being yelled at for something so unreasonable, I ran out of the living room. Quitting his job when we were about to have a baby was just unbelievable. The thought filled me with anxiety, and tears streamed down my face. Just then, I felt a sharp pain in my lower abdomen and told my husband about it, but he said,
"You probably just ate too much. I've been drinking, so I can't drive,"
and ignored me completely. So I had no choice but to take a taxi to the hospital, where they said I was at risk of premature labor and needed to be hospitalized immediately. When I asked my husband to bring me some things I needed to the hospital, he said,
"Not my problem. A stay-at-home wife abandoning the house is such a failure as a wife."
And he refused to help at all. In the end, my husband never once visited me during my hospital stay. 2 months after being admitted, at 9 months pregnant, I safely gave birth to a baby boy. Once my son was born, my husband and mother-in-law finally started coming to the hospital, but they showed no interest in the baby whatsoever. Every time she visited, my mother-in-law would just say, "I can't believe you were away from the house for 2 whole months." All she did was complain. While I was brushing off her comments, she looked at my son and said, "Such a tiny baby. He'll probably die soon anyway." With that comment, my patience, which had held up until that moment, finally snapped. "How dare you say something so horrible? Get out of here now!" I exploded with rage. Seeing me angry for the first time, my husband and mother-in-law looked a bit uncomfortable as they left. I really wanted to divorce him and go back to my parents' house right away, but I had no money and couldn't do anything about it. The thought made me so sad I started crying. While I was crying alone, my husband's maternal grandparents arrived after being told about the birth of their great-grandchild. My grandmother-in-law said, "Why are you crying? Oh, did something happen?" I told them everything my husband and mother-in-law had done to me, including what had just happened. After listening silently, my grandfather-in-law said,
"Yulia, I'm so sorry for what my daughter and grandson have done to you. If you want a divorce, I'll help you. You don't have to endure this anymore."
When I told him I wanted to divorce immediately, he said,
"Just leave everything to me."
And with a stern expression, he left the hospital room. I was changing my son's diaper when my grandfather-in-law came in with my mother-in-law and husband. My mother-in-law and husband looked pale and kept their heads down. My grandfather-in-law said,
"Come on, apologize!"
and made them both bow their heads. After they apologized to me, my grandfather-in-law said,
"Give Yulia all the money from selling the house!"
But my mother-in-law protested. "Why should I? That's my money, so there's no way I'm handing it over to her." At that moment, my grandfather-in-law shouted,
"That's barely enough compensation for how you tormented her! I'm the one who paid off that house! The money from selling it is mine!"
My mother-in-law and husband had nothing to say and reluctantly agreed to give me the money. After that, I received $80,000 from the sale of the house and the land. I demanded child support from my husband, and our divorce was finalized. Now unemployed, my husband desperately looked for work to maintain the house, but he couldn't find a well-paying job and eventually filed for bankruptcy, and the new house in his name had to be given up. Having lost their home and given all their assets to me, my husband and mother-in-law had nowhere to turn and relied on my grandfather-in-law. But of course my grandfather-in-law said,
"I'm disowning you!"
and cut them off. Both mother and son ended up on the streets together. Eventually they borrowed money to rent a run-down apartment and are apparently scraping by on my mother-in-law's pension. My ex-husband is mooching off his mother's pension, remaining a shut-in without working. As a result, their debt keeps piling up and their finances are a disaster. As for me, after returning to my parents' house, I've been using the money I received to focus on raising my child. My son has grown healthy and strong, and now he's the same size as the other kids his age. Until he's old enough for preschool, I plan to take it easy and raise him at my parents' house. Since the divorce, I've been stress-free, and with my parents' support, I'm enjoying motherhood every day. From now on, I want to live a strong life as a single mother.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.